Hi, everybody. Welcome to a thing that is happening. Whether you like it or not, you probably don't like it. Anyway, infinite regression is where you find yourself. Look at how infinite this regression is. It just goes on, and indeed it goes on some more. Yep, that's all it do. That's all it do. Hey, uh, we're doing some of this. We're playing some hardcore world. I do need to show you around a little bit because I put some time into this world since you saw it last. You know, because I had my other world that I died in, and that was very sad. And now I've got this one, and haven't died yet. Oh my god. Okay, I built this keyboard. Well, I rebuilt this keyboard. Basically, early in my keyboarding days, I was like, I like linear switches because they're smooth, and I like Gatoron blacks because I was like, I have meaty man hands, big ol' strong man hands, and I can just handle a switch, you know. And if you know anything about your keyboard switches, which of course you do, who doesn't? Anyway, you know that in the linear world, your red type switches are the the lighter end of the scale, and the blacks are the heavy end of the scale. Anyway, I bought myself a pair back when they were like insanely cheap because I basically only deal in very cheap keyboards. Well, that's not entirely true. I have a couple of keyboards that I sprung for. Even then, I paid less than they are worth. But that would be the drop control, which I bought as the bare bones kit. And so they didn't even come with those gray and black keycaps that the drop keyboards are known for. Anyway, mine have other things on them. They've all got, well, one has Akko ocean blue switches. The other one has Akko sponge yellows. And I love me some Akko switches. They are the best budget switch for the money right now. Used to be Gatorons. Actually, Gatoron partnered with Akko for some of their switches. And, yeah. So that's a whole thing. I think they're made, I think they're owned by the same company. It's just, if it is, then it's just Gatoron stepping up their game massively. Anyway, regardless, I know you came here for keyboard talk. You're like, spill the hot keyboard talk, old man. And that's what I'm here to do, for crying out loud. Anyway, so you can see this area is like barren. There's nothing here. So you come down into my mine, and it's not very mined out yet. I'm going to be perfectly honest about that. I intended to do more minery and have not done so. So get off my back. Here's, like, you could tell that I'm firmly established because I have my incinerator. Very simple machine. You need a redstone repeater, little trail of redstone, switch here to activate the thing. Redstone torch interrupts the circuit, which then blinks it on and off, sending the signal back and forth. And then you go dropper, hopper, chest, one on top of the other. Then I like to build a nice glass cage around it. Technically, you could just... Oh yeah, you got to have a pit of lava for things to fall into. And if you have a block right here, everything will fall into the lava. But safety first. Safety first. Anyway, so this is my mine as it stands currently. I do have some things. Look at this. I've even got 6 diamonds. I've got a healthy supply of iron. That things going along well. I've even got a buried treasure map that I haven't gone and dug up yet. Got an enchanted book. Some good things. Because where do I get such things? Well, I will be perfectly honest with you. Get them in places like this. Boom, that chest is empty. But yeah, I've gone and I've cleared out a lot of this mine area, and I got kind of bored with it, and so now I'm just gone back to mining like this. It's the same mine, just back a different way. I keep that option open so that I can, go in there, get large amounts of iron, typically is what those are good for. Oh, is it almost eventide? Indeed, it almost is. Well, here we go. Sleepy, sleep, sleep. I haven't even picked flowers to color my bed yet, so that's coming up. That's a thing that needs to happen. Anyways, let's come on up these stairs and I'll show you what I've been working on in terms of my humble abode. Like you can see, I don't have any like ridiculous gargantuan structure built up here yet. And I normally like to build a ridiculous gargantuan structure, but then the problem is, what if I fall off? Because that's the thing that can and indeed does happen with gargantuan structures. Like my other games, like I build in castles and whatnot, and I keep falling off. Anyway, so I built this monstrosity. I still need to get some lanterns up there. But yeah, so this is happening, and this is sand right now because I'm not done. In theory, I could just stretch this out into infinity and never be done with it ever, which wouldn't that be a good time for everybody? Oh, I should do pumpkin floors. If I do pumpkin floors and lantern ceilings, that's a smart move. That's the smart move. That's what I should do. Anyway, but yeah, because I've been using, if you're wondering, like, oh, how does he make all this glass? Well, I've got a lot of sand available to me. Like, you look out this way, you'll notice, like, this used to be sand. Now I've just left these sandstone blocks. But there's still, like, you don't even have to go that far to find sand. Obviously, look, there's horsey and whatnot. So yeah, there's some things I need to do. Still getting this place up and running. But yeah, we will do it. We will do it a turret. So yeah, maybe I should go down and grab my pumpkins, get those planted. Plant my pumpkins and put more peas into the popping of the pop filter. The pop filter takes the percussive nature of my peas and it persuades them to be less poppy. Anyway, hopefully it does, otherwise your ears just got blown out. But yeah, I think I have, I got 3 pumpkins. And I got some shears. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. Anyway, you can stop clicking. Anyway, we'll come up topside and we'll get some of this started. Yeah. So, I just wanted to hop back in on this game, but also, do a little riffage, raffage. Oh, the kitty fighting does not end. The bad blood between these kitties is very much real. Oh, wait, what the? I right-clicked it, and it was already much more fertile than I had intended. Anyway, so, I need to, like, harvest my pumpkins first, because you gotta come over here, you gotta put them down, beep, bop, boop. Then, you gotta take your shears, and then, okay, I've got 12 seeds. All right, that's enough to get 2 planting places up and running, and then we'll just expand out from there, and it'll get wildly out of hand very quickly, I have no doubt. Because when do I not take it entirely too far with the pumpkins? What the? Okay, get out of here. Why? Okay, do I have... Okay, I do have a hoe. Hey ho. All right, and then we're going to take these Pumpion seeds and plant them into the earth. Already got one there, sweet. All right, so that's where these pumpkins will grow. Then these pumpkins will grow here. This will be the furrow, and then this will be... That's how you have to plan out for pumpkin spacing. You have to, make sure they have room to grow. They take a little more than most. I don't know why this is, I have no idea where I learned to grow them this way. Somebody commented on it. They were like, why you grow your pumpkins that way? And I was like, I just do what I do. Don't be so critical. And they were like, but I like being critical. And I was like, well, I guess you do you. You do you then. With your critical nature. Anyway. So we got that done. Got that nice and started. But yeah, let's see. I got some things I can chuck into the furnace. Because I was chopping down trees. Because I was like, I'm probably going to need to clear this section out to make room for pumpkins. And I also need to get some stables together. Because if I do pumpkins, then I got to have sheep so I can do carpet. So it's a whole thing. It's a whole industry. Anyway, which is actually how societies develop. Agriculture gives rise to specialization. We know this. We've all read Guns, Germs, and Steel. We understand it. Anyway, we all should have read Guns, Germs, and Steel. Did you not read it? Have you not read it? Have you been walking around having not read it? What's your deal? What's your deal? And why don't you do what you're supposed to? Read the book. Anyway, it's a really good book that anthropologists have their complaints with. But I think one of those complaints is that a lot of people just plain old don't like interdisciplinary studies. So... they get all up in arms when someone who is not from their discipline writes a book that, either overlaps with or touches upon or is, in the case of Guns, Germs, and Steel, just a big ol' statement having a lot to do with their area of study. And to them, it's like, oh, you coming into my court, you are calling into question my expertise, and I do not take kindly to that, good sir. Anyway, so here's how I build underwater nonsense is, a fairly tried and true method that I've used before. So you got to lay down your sand. Well, you got to lay down the walls and constantly bob up and down. I've been looking for turtles so that I can breed them and get the little helmet that apparently gives you the ability to breathe underwater, but I have not found turtles. I do have a secret stash of seagrass, which I am led to believe is... I've never bred turtles. So you'll forgive my naivete if I'm saying anything that is not so. But I will say this: in another game, a student was watching me play, and he's like, "Oh, you get that helmet by killing the turtles." And I was like, "You want me to hit this adorable turtle that, like, if it were alive in real life, would be an endangered species? You want me to hit it with my sword?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's how you get the helmet." And I was like, "Oh, you better be right about this." And I killed one, and he's like, "Well, you know, you don't get it with every drop." Wait, why did I hear a bat over here? There's no call for bats over here. What? Do we have a cave that's not filled with water that's got bats in it? Anyway, that's absurd. That's ridiculous. The bat should be ashamed of himself. Anyway, I'd sooner expect a Batman in this area, you know? First of all, it's a rough neighborhood. A lot of crime. A lot of crimes occurring. Like me nearly drowning, and like the occasional drowned making those gurgly gurgle noises that nobody likes. Nobody likes them. Hey, there are elements of the game which are new, which people like, and there are elements which nobody likes. And what's one that nobody likes? The gurgling noise made by the drowned. Nobody freaking likes it, and, you know, Microsoft needs to know. Also, hey, Microsoft, just a fun fact. You know, Microsoft was like, "Oh, you need to migrate all of your Mojang accounts to Microsoft accounts, because, you know, that's how we're going to do the launcher." And they're like, "Hey, it's so much faster. Like, this launcher is so much faster." No, it's not. It is like it started out a little bit faster, and now it's slower. It is much slower. Ugh. What is Microsoft if not a bunch of liars? Oh, hey, speaking of liars, we need to talk about Supreme Court stuff, but I never finished my line of thought with keyboard stuff. So I decided with this one, you know, I took one of these keyboards and I took all of my spare ACO switches, because I switched a lot of my keyboards over to ACO switches, and you buy them in sets of 45. They are surprisingly cheap, and they come in lovely boxes, amazing packaging, which my daughter then uses for her art supplies, which is good. Reduce, reuse, ikiki. And yeah, so but yeah, when they come, you know, 45 at a time, and say you've got a 60% keyboard or a 75% keyboard, you're not going to use all those switches. And so the spares accumulate over time, and so with the first of these AK-33s, I was able to put just all spare switches on, and it already had really good keycaps, because when I bought the rainbow set for my daughter for her keyboard, I bought a set for myself, and so we both have rainbow keycaps going on our keyboard. So I just put the rainbow keycaps back on and used switches that I already had. And for this one, I had a similar idea. I was like, I'm gonna make a clickety clackety monster, and so because I have some blue switches that are left over from, you know, back when I liked blue switches. I mean, I still do like blue switches sometimes. It's fun to just pull them out and be like, oh, this is terrible. Like, it's like a good, bad movie. You know what I'm saying? Or like food that you shouldn't eat that you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, this is, I definitely like, there's this place, the first time that I ever went out for beers, a coworker of mine found out that I had only recently started drinking and that I really had not developed a taste for beer yet. And he's like, "Oh, we're going out for beers because there's a local brewery." And, if you go out to a local brewery, they very often have like, a full restaurant menu and whatnot because, why not? It's often very delicious and very awesome, especially paired with some craft brewed beers because craft brewed beers are like, I mean, if you drink mass produced American style lagers, your Budweisers, your Coorses, your Michelobs, your Bushes, your Natty Lights, and like all of the freaking nonsense beers, what they taste like is if you force feed seltzer water to a homeless man and then have him piss that seltzer water into a rusty bucket and then you just leave it out in the sun for a week. That is what Budweiser and Coors and they're indecipherable from each other. They're just the worst seltzer water you've ever had. Anyway, so do not drink. They're gross because as it turns out, like if you like beer, there are still people who make beer. Like my absolute all-time beer. I had one just the other day. We were commemorating the it's been a year since my brother died, and we were, oh geez, what? I was not watching my health. I was thinking about what I was saying. Anyway, but yeah, there's German beer that I'm quite fond of. It's the absolute best beer I've ever had, and it's not cheap, not in America anyway. And but I love it. It's very yummy and delicious, and because it's a good German beer, it's dark, and it has a nutty, almost chewy. It has a nutty flavor, like your good. It's a double bock, is what it is. If you're, I'll just tell you what it is. Like it's not like I'm got to keep it a secret. It's Weihenstephaner Corbinian. It's their Weihenstephaner's double bock. They're the longest continuously operating brewery in the world. So you think, oh geez, there's a drowned. Okay, come here, you stupid. See, this is the kind of crap we have to put up with. Okay, well, why don't you come here, you idiot? I don't want you to be alive anymore. I would very much prefer you to be dead. Oh, I gotta go up or I'm gonna be dead. Yeah, I hate the noise you make, and I wish you don't make it anymore, and that there not be any more of you, because it's terrible and I hate it. Wait, did I make these uneven? No, they're even. Okay, it was like, do I have 4 on this side and 3 on that? Anyway, back to keyboard nonsense. So yeah, the first of my Akko AK-33s, which is, not an expensive keyboard. Even still, it's not an expensive keyboard. But it's a pre-built, and so it comes with switches and and there it's not hot swappable. That you have to solder. You have to do some soldering if you want to take it apart. And I will tell you, like, my first keyboard was a soldering nightmare. And like, I'm decent at soldering. I learned how to solder when I was like 10. I've been doing it a long time, and yeah, it was very upsetting because like, pads kept lifting, and like it just all the stuff that you don't want to happen was happening. And I don't think I'd ever done a project with so many soldering, with so much soldering. But the board I was working on was crap. Like, it didn't work to begin with. So, I can't blame myself too much for how that went down, but it did make me a little gun shy, because I'd done nothing but hot swappable keyboards since then. But then I had these two Ajazzes, not Aka. Oh, I get to kill the wandering trader. Stay there. I want to kill you. No, come here, stupid. Like, come over here. I want to kill you with the sword. Yes, come here. Come here, dude. Come here. What? Why are you going away from me? Okay, fine. I will kill you on the water. Such a pain. I mean, if anyone at Microsoft is paying attention, and why would they? They don't care about user experience at all. Never have. Have you used Microsoft products before? I have, for a decent chunk of my life, and I can attest to the fact that when it comes to Microsoft, user experience is secondary. That's why we all use our Zune phones, and like, that's why we all loved Microsoft ME. Ooh, and Microsoft Bob. I remember Bob. Anyway, good times. We definitely loved everything about the Microsoft experience. Yeah, the funny thing about Microsoft is that every now and again they will come out with an operating system that, like, we don't actively hate. Like Windows 7. We did not actively hate Windows 7. That's what we reserved for Windows 8. And yeah. Windows XP before that, Windows 95 before that, and then Windows 3.1 before that. Those are the good operating systems. I suppose there are fans of NT. 2000 was built on NT, but, neither here nor there. Fact is that the only good Microsoft operating systems that don't give you freaking nightmares constantly are 3.1, 95, XP. I did like 98 all right, but it is problematic. Like, they're like it has its issues. Same with 2000. The Windows Millennium Edition, forget about it. People hated ME, but I did the impossible. I built a computer out of random spare parts in my brother-in-law's den. He's like, if you can build a computer out of the things in this box, then you may have computer. And I was like, computer accomplished. Yeah. That's how I learned the difference between freaking what was it back in the day? It was SCSI and IDE that, like, you know, yeah, and also the difference between like AGP and come on, brain. It's the one that survived, stupid. Uh come on. Anyway, regardless, I'm not here to talk about this shit. What I'm here to talk about, ladies and gentlemen, is the fact that this spacebar, which normally the spacebar is the focal point of a keyboard build. Oh, yeah. So this one, yeah, I was making a clacky monster because I had some blues. I tried to reuse the Ajaz keycaps, but somehow I lost some of them when I popped them off this board the first time. Because, yeah, anyway, I moved the keycaps from this board to another board. And so this was just going to be a parts board special. You're in a hobby when you can, like, there are guys out there who are like, I built this bicycle out of my spare bicycle parts. And people who are like, I built this computer. Actually, I've done that recently. I built this computer out of my spare computer parts. I built 2 computers out of my spare computer parts. That's a problem. I have a problem. I'm willing to admit it. Anyway, but yeah, now I have enough keyboard shit and stuff. Things. This is the channel where I don't swear. I have another secret channel that is unfindable. You can't find it. It's impossible to find. Anyway, but yeah, so I was able to build a Franken computer out of just random bits and bobs that I just had lying around, which is always a fun thing to be able to do, because, like, the first one that I built, like, it came out, it sounds amazing, like, because Akko, jelly blues and sponge yellows are actually the exact same switch. It's just different colored housings, but same spring weight, same manufacturer. They're both tactiles, and so people have said, like, hey, I think these are just the same switches. And indeed, like, you cannot tell the difference, because I have a keyboard that is like roughly half jelly blues and half sponge yellows, and yeah, it sounds amazing. I tape modded the bottom of the PCB, and I foam modded the case. I penny modded the case for the first time ever, because that's one of the downsides of the AK-33, is that it is a light as frick keyboard. It weighs nothing in its factory state. It's just like, it's a plastic shell, and also PCBs are made of plastic, and we put as little metal on this as possible, and you can feel it, like. And so you just take a bunch of pennies and shove a bunch of pennies in there on the bottom of the case, and then tape them down to the bottom of the case, and it gives it some heft, which, like, you know how when things are heavier, you're like, it's more expensive and valuable now. Like, I don't know why we do that, but it's like, you put batteries in something. When it doesn't have its batteries, you're like, what's this piece of junk? And then you put the batteries in, and you're like, it has a heft that belies a certain elegance and obvious value. That's because human beings are dumb, or at least I am. That's very much a thing. So yeah, I penny modded the first one, put those Akko switches on it, tape modded the PCB, and it sounds thocky as thocky thok. Like the noise that people in YouTube videos about, like, listen to how amazing my keyboard sounds. It sounds like one of those keyboards. Like, it sounds so good, you know. And I was really happy with that. And so I was like, yeah, let's do this other one. And anyway, so I did this other one. And this other one, it sounds, I don't know, it's not entirely amazing. No. I mean, like, okay, I'll hold up. Let's go to boop-a-doo-doo-doo. No, that's the other one. Oh, I was listening to some of this. This is interesting, but it's let's go rightbox.appspot. Anyway. So, if you listen, I'm gonna bend my microphone close so you can hear. Oh, geez, come on. I'm just trying to do some typing McTyperson. Why you getting all... Why'd you close that tab, you jerk? I need an... Okay, give me Rightbox. Rightbox, that app spot. Okay. You hear what those sound... Come on, stop doing that. Jeez. Anyway... But the Spacebar, you hear that? That thing is lubed. Those stabilizers are lubed, and yet it's the rattliest thing I own. Like, the rest of it sounds fine as, like, clicky blues, you know, but that Spacebar sounds like a freaking nightmare, and it's awful, and I hate it. Anyway, and so I need to work on it some more. Anyway, people, I don't remember what I came down here for. Oh, I need shovels so that I can go get more sand. But I didn't need to come down here for that. That's ridiculous. Oh, I guess I need to put my leather, my bones. Why didn't I get any leads? I killed 2 freaking alpacas and I didn't get leads for it? That's bullcrap. I'm going to go check the water here in a minute and see if I can find those. Anyway, wait, do I have enough? Yeah, I guess I have that gunpowder from the Freeper. Anyway, let's build ourselves a couple more shovels so that we can go get some more sand, because that is a needful thing. But yeah, anyway, I got some keyboard troubles, but it's okay. You know, having troubles in your hobby is kind of, you know, part of what makes it fun. You know, the problem solving aspect of it, figuring out how to, you know, take something and make it better. It's fun to do that, troubleshooting and whatnot. Like, so yeah, I can't complain too much, but I don't have the time to fix this spacebar right now. Well, no, let's be more honest about it. I don't have the energy to fix this spacebar right now, and so it's just going to continue to bother me. Ah, really? Thank you for that, myself, for my very awesome leap of faith into the unknown and the unknowable. Anyway, yeah, I gotta come over here and get more sand so I can finish filling in and extend my underwater lair. And I know that, like, my underwater lair is big and boxy. It's just, like, it's kind of hard to do anything else, you know? Kind of hard to want to do anything else. But yeah. Okay, let's talk about the thing everybody's talking about lately because it's worth talking about. So the Supreme Court is set to overturn Roe v. Wade, and that's freaking dangerous and stupid, but I mean, those are two things which very appropriately describe the modern Republican Party. I mean, you look at what Ginny Thompson was doing, and yeah, there you go. Like, dangerous and stupid. That's what it is. And you think that freaking Clarence Thomas is going to do the right thing and recuse himself when he gets called upon to make decisions about this stuff? Well, he already hasn't, number one. And number two, he won't. He does. There's nothing that makes him have to do it other than his own sense of propriety, which is way less defined than we thought or hoped it would be. So I don't have a lot of hope there, and so it's unfortunate. You know, a lot of people are focusing on the fact that, you know, for the first time in history that we know of, we have a leaked draft of an opinion, and that just never happens because it's a secret deliberative body. I mean, obviously they are transparent in that they, you know, release their majority and minority opinions. They release their vote totals, like who voted which way on which case. You know, those things are known. They're very well documented. You know, the court itself maintains an archive of these things. This is very important for them to do so. And so, yeah, like it's, you know, we do tend to get access, but after the fact. We never get it before the fact. And so, you know, there's been a lot of speculation as to who would do such a thing, like who would, you know, release an opinion that is not meant for public consumption, to release it for public consumption when it's, you know, clearly not ready or intended for it yet. Well, you know, of course, the Fox Newses of the world are already speculating that, like, oh, these gall-darned liberals with their liberality, and it's like, you know what? So the Supreme Court is going to make this decision at the end of their session because they're so gutless, these 5 conservative justices who lied, by the way. All of them lied in their hearings, you know, because all of them were asked point blank about Roe v. Wade, because everyone knew going in that these clowns were being chosen. You know, like Trump didn't even choose his own nominees in the sense that, you know, he did none of the work. He just, you know, had the super conservative, what are they called? Something society. Brain is not doing me any favors right now. It's Friday, and so, you know, yes, I am starting to enjoy my weekend, whatever. So the brain is not as good as it normally is. But yeah, you know, there's this hyper-conservative society who believe themselves to be constitutionalists, even though they get absolutely delighted when you do something like, you know, take a hot steaming piss all over the Constitution, when you deny Barack Obama a nomination because it's too close to the election, haha, and then, in the week before an election when votes were already being counted in some states. The mail-in ballots were already being counted in some states, like I believe Ohio was one of them. There are others. Anyway, so votes had already been cast, and what was, Mitch McConnell has rationale, well, we have to, it would be wrong, the people should decide who gets to put the next Supreme Court justice out. And anyway, freaking Mitch McConnell, go die in a hole somewhere. Like, this is the culmination of his political career. This is the highest thing to which he has been striving for longer than I have been alive. This douche, this tool, this, I have so many choice words, but this isn't the channel where I swear. But Mitch McConnell is just a laughably awful human being. He's like a Batman villain. He's so cartoonishly evil. You remember how, everyone compared Dick Cheney to the Penguin from Batman. Yeah. Well, we don't have a direct comparison for Mitch McConnell. I would say Two-Face, except for, Harvey Dent was once a good man, and I don't know that Mitch McConnell ever was. And also, the thing about Two-Face is that ultimately he's just like, no, we go random, we go rogue, we go random. Mitch McConnell is very plotting and scheming. I don't know, maybe the Scarecrow, but like he's not really, I don't know. He's just a terrible guy in a cartoon. He's actually probably more similar to Blofeld of James Bond lore than he is to anything from Batman. Anyway, regardless, like these clowns, these buffoons, have been plotting and scheming to do this forever, and now that it's happening, they're acting like, what? We had no idea. And wait, is there something swimming out here that is not me? Okay, those have to check. Do y'all play with the subtitles on? Because I find it tremendously helpful. Like, it just tells you which direction sounds are coming from, and that just seems like a great thing to turn on. And it's not a cheat, it's just an option that you can turn on. I know it's meant for the hearing impaired, but it's such an advantage that, like, if you were playing Minecraft competitively against a deaf person and they had the subtitles on and you did not, they would be at a massive advantage because it would tell them exactly what sound is coming from exactly which area. Anyway, so yeah, we're looking to overturn Roe v. Wade, and this leak, this betrayal of the secretive deliberative processes. Oh my word. Well, except that most Americans are not as upset about that as they are about the fact that they're doing what they're doing. And everybody's noted, like, you would think that if someone spent 50 years, because the Republicans have literally, Roe passed in 1973, so the 50th anniversary of Roe would be like this time next year. So we're, 49 years. 49 friggin' years that Republicans have been working to overturn Roe v. Wade. And, like, Trump would actually say it out loud at his rallies. He's like, hey, you can hate me if you want to, but you still have to vote for me if you're a Republican because, you know, the only thing you care about is abortion. And so you need those justices, and I'm the one who will give them to you, you know, because you won't get those justices from Hillary, you know, because Hillary probably would have nominated. I don't know if I honestly think if Hillary had won, her first nominee would have been Merrick Garland, who Merrick Garland may be a thorn in Trump's side in so many different ways because of the various investigations going on, many of which we only assume are happening because of, you know, other investigations that happen. And then people are like, hey, we call upon the Justice Department to, you know, handle some of this business. And you know, the Merrick Garland Justice Department does not seem to be given to this whole, you know, we had the Mueller special counsel, and that was a fiasco. You know, because of the horrible person that, you know, Attorney General Barr was, and the horrible person that his predecessor, little munchkin man, what's his face? I can picture his dingus doofus little head, his little Texan nonsense. I don't remember his stupid name. Come on, brain. My brain is normally better than this, but you know what? It's the weekend, and I'm enjoying my weekend, and you cannot fault me for that because I am a teacher who is nearing the end of a school year, and so, you know that I'm barely holding it together on so many levels. My play is next week. This is another play that I've written because I've taken to writing the plays for my drama class, because that's what I do. Anyway, so yeah, this is a play that I've written that I believe in a great deal, and, you know, I like yellow beds. And, you know, there's still a lot of work to be done before the play is ready. I'm not concerned because I know people can do it. I'm concerned a little bit now as to whether or not they will do it, but I'm not worried about whether or not they can, because they certainly can. Anyway, but yeah, working with a lot of young actors, a lot of first-time actors who are memorizing lines for the first time. I need to really, every line memorization technique I've looked at is some form of repetition, and that's how you memorize things, is repetition. I mean, granted, there are other ways of memorizing things that are not repetitious specifically. You know, people come up with mnemonics and whatnot, which would be helpful for longer monologues, but we don't have any long monologues in this. It's a lot of dialogue, and it's a lot of dialogue that is the problem with it is that I have externalized the internal, which I love doing in my plays, by the way. It's probably my, you know, little hackneyed bullcrappy thing for which, anyone looking back at my works will be like, this freaking guy, all he ever does is externalize the internal, which, I suppose on a certain level shows a like a lack of trust in your actors, because actors themselves in playing a role are supposed to externalize the internal. But I love uh showing very clearly the internal conflicts that we all struggle with, between what we know is right and wrong, and between, so many things, our desire to seek revenge against those who have done us wrong versus our desire to let it go and just move on with our lives. And anyway, so yeah, the problem is that every character has their logic and their emotion. That's the name of the characters: their logic, their emotion. And the anyway, logic and emotion, your head and your heart. It is a classic duality of human nature. And, so many people tend to think of human nature as a duality. And so, yeah, it plays out pretty well. And of course, I'm not the one who invented it, so I can't be like, I invented the concept of externalizing the duality of, heart and mind. Like, that's certainly not my my invention. But yeah, and certainly not, because I've done a fair bit of, studying Greek tragedies. The first dramatic work that I wrote, the first play that I wrote, was a comedy. The second one, my students asked specifically for a drama, and not only did they ask for a drama, they asked for a drama with good monologues in it. And so I worked very hard to give them that. And then they were like, oh, these monologues are so long. That was my play Microcosm, in which, what is happening internally often does not mirror what is happening externally does not always mirror what is happening internally. And it sometimes does, but you see, bullies, and you see people who cheat on their significant other, and you see all sorts of behaviors, good and bad and in between, and these little vignettes. And then what is presented, there's a chorus who will tell them to stop and to go back and to show them again. And when they show them again, they're showing from the inside. That's when in the middle of the action of what we've already just seen, we've already seen the scene, we know how it goes, we know the beats. So you show something to the audience once in one way, and then you show what's happening internally that causes this to happen, or that belies a deeper complexity than you had considered, given the very commonplace nature of what we believe that we are seeing. It's just one of those things where the intent was to show a deeper complexity to what are some fairly stock tropish characters. And I liked it, my students liked it, we all had a good time with it. And so this one is loosely based on the Greek tragedy Medea, which, if you know Medea, that is a piece of work. I know that when I say Medea, you probably think of Tyler Perry, And that is a shame. Like, not that I begrudge Tyler Perry anything. It's just that, like, I wish he chose a different name, because Medea, the play, is this amazing piece of writing that is so very layered, where, it's like, I love seeing that, this thing that we do now, where, like, I love listening. There's Alan Moore, that is a great writer. He did this 1, 2, 3, 6. Okay. Yeah, he did this series of interviews on how to write good stories, compelling stories. And when he was talking about characters, he's like, it was major developments in, because his medium is comic books, and he's like, here's some major developments in the writing of comic book heroes. And what he gives us is a look at how flawed the characters are, and not just flawed, but like, how, to what extent do they encompass both good and evil? Because the best Batman movies are always the ones where there's some moral ambiguity on Batman's part, where you're not entirely sure that what the Batman is doing is what ought to be done. And that is, it makes for a compelling character, because then you have to consider, well, where are they coming from? And why are they motivated to do this? And if I were in their shoes, would I do the same thing? As opposed to this is why Superman is such a trash character. Yeah, that's right. All you Jerry Seinfelds of the world who are like, Superman's the best. I suppose it's a generational thing, but Superman is not the best, because he flies too high above it all. He's a Boy Scout, and like, the problem, if you want to make a grittier, harsher Superman, the thing is that, sorry, but that's a betrayal of the character. Superman is a Boy Scout. That is who he is. And I think a lot of people would take exception if you were like, well, what about a super gritty Superman who, like, one of the best things I've ever seen done with Superman is the Superman Red Sun story, which is, it asks the question, like, so Superman lands, like, when he is sent by his parents from Krypton, when he arrives on Earth, he lands in America, and then, grows up to embody American values. Superman Red Sun asks the question, what if he didn't land in America? And what if, very specifically, he landed somewhere that's very, very much not America, someplace like Russia, perhaps? And that's the big question of the of that miniseries, or limited series is what you call it in comic books. But yeah, it's very, very good and very much worth reading. Anyway. But yeah, okay. You know what? I should just go straight back, because I don't want to lose. I don't want to lose where I am. I don't want to get, like, tangled in the catacombs. Just need some of these bad boys is all I need. So I'm going to go get me some cattle and whatnot. But anyway, yeah, So what makes Batman interesting is that Batman from the beginning was a little unhinged. You know, his motivations were a little unhinged. His entire character is a little unhinged, and that is what makes him interesting, and so much more interesting than Superman, because Superman's a Boy Scout. Superman won't kill anybody, and Batman tends to not kill people, but early on in Batman lore, or the early Batman comics, there are some questionable actions taken by the Batman, where he, like, there's one where he's got a gangster, because that's who early superheroes fought. Everybody fights the villain of their day, which, like, how long until we're seeing Putin as a villain in comic books? He'd make a decent comic book villain, because he basically is one in real life. Wait, is this? Oh, this is just more of same. Anyway, so yeah, everybody fighting the villains of their time, the villains of their day, and so what? Did I pick those up, or did they disappear? I didn't see them. Go into my inventory. Anyway, so yeah. Wait, what? Am I lost? Did I lose it? I definitely did. Wait, is this sitting on a piece of rail? Because I collect those. I know that an axe is not the proper tool for that, but whatever. It's a stone axe. I can make 1,000,000 more. Error. So yeah. Batman better than Superman, because Batman early on, there's a part where Batman fighting gangsters. He has a gangster on the skid of the Batcopter, just barely holding on, and Batman lets him fall. And it is very ambiguous as to whether or not he survived. And I just assumed that he died, given the height that they were flying and how little Batman seemed to care for this guy's well-being. I was like, oh, Batman just killed this dude, was immediately what I thought. So, I could be wrong. I don't know that I am. But I do recall reading in early Batman comic books where he killed a dude. He was not entirely above that. And that's what makes him more interesting. And not just that, but like take the this storyline where it's revealed that Batman has on board the Justice League satellite, he has the both the knowledge and the means to take down every single member of the Justice League. And of course he's keeping this information secure on board the Justice League satellite. Oh, sweet pumpkins. But of course, like Superman and the Flash and the Green Lantern and like everybody in the Justice League is like, what the hell, what the hell, Batman? And Batman's response, and this is what makes Batman interesting, Batman's response from his friends to, what the hell, dude? Why? Oh, I have bats flying around inside. Why do I have bats flying inside my humble abode? That don't make no sense. Why do bats spawn? Anyway, I don't know what's going on, clearly. Okay. Oh, I'm ready to shovel this out. That's what I'm ready to do. So yeah, we're going down in. Oh, but right, I've got all this fence, so I need to focus. Where did I kill that wandering traitor? Because I still upset about those leads. Anyway, so I should build my stuff somewhere around here. Try to build it long and narrow rather than wide, but that's just me. But yeah, flawed, fallible characters that you can look at and be like, well, he may be super powered, or in the case of Batman, not even super powered. But boy, I sure am like he is. You know, like I identify with him. Take this back a level. So I'm just realizing, like, it'd be way too easy to hop that fence. Find a bunch of mobs in my, sheep pens or whatnot. Anyway. But it is fun to see flawed superheroes. And one of the things that I absolutely love, one of my favorite things is supervillains who are world leaders. Because like there's a point where in the X-Men canon where Magneto starts his own nation that is like recognized by other nations as like, yeah, you are all mutants. We'll let you live your mutant ways because, X-Men is all about racism. And, so the non-powered humans, the non-mutant humans are like, yeah, live your crazy mutant lifestyles, and live them, let's see, I'll do it right here. Yeah, live your crazy mutant lifestyles away from us because so much damage to our property and so hard to trust you guys because you have powers that we can barely understand and that terrifies us. And so, racism and whatnot. Anyway. But yeah, I love the idea of like a supervillain who like is the leader of a nation who like is beloved by his people. Like his people see him as doing a good job, which once again, Vladimir Putin, what a great villain this guy would make. Like really all-timer in terms of like him a supervillain. You kidding me? Like he's already evil and already a megalomaniac and already like also like see when I said evil megalomaniac I was like, well, isn't that what Trump is? And then I was like, oh, but Trump is a like braggadocious douchebag who is also wildly ineffective at so many things. He's a friggin' clown. And whereas Putin is many things, but he is not a clown. He's a war criminal. He is one of the worst humans on the planet today. He's just a god-awful human being who should be brought to a tribunal of some sort, but he is no clown. At the very least, he is no clown. Anyway, he is much more like a comic book villain, and I hate that I like the idea of him as a comic book villain, because you actually like comic book villains like Black Adam from Shazam. I love Black Adam. I will read the crap out of a Black Adam storyline. But yeah, if you gave me an actual Black Adam in real life, I doubt very much that I would be as thrilled. You know, just guessing, just making assumptions about how I would probably feel if we had, a terrible dictator with too much power in the world. Just guessing at how I'd feel about that. But yeah. Oh, there's cows and sheepies. I just need sheepies. And I don't need brown ones, not to be weirdly racist or anything, but it's easier to take the white ones. Wait. Or can you dye the brown ones? I literally don't know. But I don't want to chance it right now, because I've got to grab some sheepies and try and make it back before sundown. So, and it would have been nice if I had some leads. Okay, I'm going to have to try very hard to not fall in any of the many crevasses that dot the area. But I think I'll be able to make it back before the sun goes down. Or maybe not. We will find out. We must find out, because finding out is all we have. Wait, is this the direction I came from? It must be. I feel like it is. I still have both of you? Yes, good. Sehr good. Probably move a little faster, but trying not to completely lose you. Oh, there's your pen over there. So we are definitely coming the right way. I don't know why I doubted it, but sometimes and I will actually give you some delicious wheat if you just stay in here. Okay, sweet. Boom. The parrots and the bats. Advancement mode. All right. So we're getting stuff done here. I think I'm going to dig out the next level of the of my humble underwater lair. That humble underwater lair that I have. Because humble underwater lairs. I'll do that. I'll talk a little bit more about this whole Roe v. Wade fiasco, and why it's a fiasco, and why I think it's terrible what's happening. Which, I'll tease it a little bit. I think the act of abortion itself is abhorrent. I would prefer that it never have to happen. And yet I vehemently support the right to it. How do I square that circle? Find out. Find out soon, very soon. I'm just going to keep talking, and that's going to be the next thing I talk about. So I guess you don't have to like stay tuned for very long. Let me hop in bed first. Okay, so let's talk about abortion. Here's the part you cannot get around. You are ending a potential human life. When you get an abortion, there is there is genetic material which, if left alone, could, in theory, grow and develop into a human being. Not necessarily guaranteed that it's going to happen. You know, number of things that can happen along the way: miscarriage, stillbirth, all sorts of terrible things that can happen. So yeah, and fun fact: 80% of the time, when a woman has a fertilized egg inside her body is like, no, we're not going to let this one attach to the uterine wall, and we're going to let it go. We're going to flush it out. And so, yeah, it's a fun thing to bring up when you're talking to people who are like, life begins at conception. And it's like, well, then why doesn't life begin at conception 80% of the time? And they probably say like, well, God wills it so. And then you tell them like, okay, if God comes to me in bodily form and says overturn Roe v. Wade, then I'll be willing to talk about it. But until he shows the frick up for himself, then you are left to handle this on the grounds of, I'm a human being, you're a human being, we're both human beings, we have to handle this as human beings. We can't, bring our peculiar beliefs into it. Trying not to say things like, oh, bring your imaginary friend in on it, but it's hard. People be making it hard these days not to say things like that, because to a certain extent, like, that is operationally what it is. Like, it is entirely possible. I would concede this point. I will concede it every time. In a universe of nothing but possibilities, is there a possibility that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is real, and that he is exactly as he has been described in his holy books, and that, his laws and statutes, which are eternal and cannot be messed around with by mortal hands, I just need to get some things down here, because, like, why did I have bats in my belfry? I think I kept it too dim. Anyway, so, yeah. But yeah, like, if you are unable to prove, because ultimately court cases are about proof. If you are unable to prove the existence of the being upon whose word you are building your case for something that will impact a lot of people who, do not believe in the same person that you believe in, 1, 2, 3, 4. And in that sense, it becomes very much operationally an imaginary friend, even though it's a wildly offensive way to put it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Until you consider that that's essentially how, believing Christians conceive of, the deities of other religions. Like, oh, the deity of your religion is not real, but the deity of my religion is oh so real. And that's kind of the approach. Anyway, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that's what it is. because I don't think it necessarily is right. I think it lends itself to a number of problems, not least of which is the complete inability to see in others those elements of yourself which are exactly like them. How are we going to get along if we can't do that on a basic level? Anyway, regardless. But yeah, I completely disregard all religious-based arguments against abortion because one of the things our founding fathers were very concerned about was tyranny. And one of the types of tyranny that some of our founding fathers, not all of them, but some of them certainly were concerned about was a religious tyranny of the religious majority. And Jefferson seemed pretty keyed in to that as a concern. And anyway, it is a legitimate concern, because we have Christians in this country who, on certain issues, can vote as a block and just override everybody else. But, why are they overriding everybody else? Is it because the thing that they are voting for is necessarily the most moral of things which can be voted for? Or is it because they have been told that it's the most moral? And the reason that they've been told it's the most moral is on the basis of their deity, a deity for which they have no more proof than we have for, Thor or Odin, Zeus and Hera. We lack the proof. And I know if you're like, well, that's wildly insulting, I'll be like, well, yes, you are correct. And if you counter it with the old, but I have seen evidence of God's work in my life. And I was like, yes, I have seen thunderstorms. Therefore, Thor, plain and simple. So, you want to step into the ring, we go like for like on gods I don't even believe in. Anyway, so I soundly reject any religious argument on the basis that our country should not be a place where people try to enforce their religion on everybody else. I mean, obviously, the test case for this is Utah, where you can't get beer over 3.2% alcohol by volume, which is obscene and absurd because, wait, where's my Weihenstephaner bottle? I don't have it. Thought I still had it. Hold up. I've got a dead soldier here. This is my daily drinker. This is the Four Peaks Kilt Lifter, an Arizona classic. And it is 6% alcohol by volume. Yeah. And it's a delicious beverage, highly recommended if you like Scotch-styled ales. It is a medium brownish beer, very weedy. It's more of a malt-based beer. I know a lot of craft brews, people go IPA. I don't go IPA because, as a super taster, I don't like being punched in the face with a pine tree, which is what super hoppity hop beers taste like, because hops have a bit of a pine tree type of a flavor, and when you go way too many hops in your beer, then all of a sudden it's like I'm chewing on one of those pine tree scented air fresheners, which would not be a pleasant experience. I doubt very much that many people would chew on one of those and be like, you know what, I'm taking this up as a habit. Anyway, so regardless, state of Utah, you cannot get full strength beer, which is stupid, And not only can you not get full strength beer, but you cannot buy alcohol anywhere other than state owned and operated liquor stores which they keep very tight hours that make it hard to get down there and pick up a case of whatever you drink. And also, you pick up that case of 3-2 beer, you're going to have to drink twice as much of it. It's ridiculous and stupid because, people who want beer want it for exactly the reason you think, and giving them the weak sauce version of it is just going to make them drink more of it. Which I guess makes money for the state, but that's not why they have the 3-2 beer law. They have it because they're oh, we don't want people getting drunk. That's terrible if someone got drunk. I don't know. Are they an adult? Is it a weekend? Are they responsible? Are they getting an Uber home and whatnot? There's all kinds of scenarios under which, I am, 2 thumbs up for someone drinking, not even, full strength beer, which a 5 or 6%, that's your normal average strength beer. But there are beers that go up to 9, 10, 11, possibly all the way to 12%, which is wine territory at that point. The strongest alcohol percentages you can get without distillation. And, I don't begrudge anybody drinking those kind of beers. That's your own personal choice, And that is actually one of the bases of our country. Did you know that America is not... It is not the freest country in the world. We like to be America. I know what the rest of that song is. But regardless, people like to be yeah, America, we're the most free. We're the land of the free. And yet, according to United Nations polls, which we kind of run the United Nations in a lot of ways, and yet we are not the freest country out there. We're not even close. We're on the list because we're freer than Iran, We're freer than Afghanistan under the Taliban. Sure, yeah, keeping it free, America. But there's a lot freer than us. And so this whole notion of oh, I want to legislate my peculiar religious-based morality, that's exactly the kind of bullcrap that makes people suspicious of Muslims, because people be oh, Sharia law, wouldn't that be a terrible thing to happen in the United States? First of all, the number of Muslims you would have to have in the United States for that to be even a remote possibility, which it's not, and we don't have enough. We'd have to have a lot more. But yeah, anyway, regardless, it's not happening. People be afraid of it, and it's not happening. What is happening is Christians of various stripes are enforcing their own weird morality. For instance, if you saw someone mixing a drink and you were someone who, for moral reasons, was I don't drink, right? And there are all sorts of reasons why people, for moral reasons, wouldn't drink. There are people who have lost a loved one to drunk driver and are as a result of this, I will never drink. There are people who just find it morally repugnant. Penn Jillette, who is an atheist, doesn't drink because he doesn't like the idea of fiddling around with your brain. You know, he likes the idea. He's like, we've got one life and we live it with our brains, and our brains are the way that we experience things, and our brains are the way that we remember those experiences. And so why go muddling around with the most important instrument in your body, you know, just to laugh at yourself for how good of a time you're having because your inhibitions are low, because you're drunk, you know, or buzzed or whatever, you know. And you know what? That's a perfectly fine moral reason to not drink, and I don't begrudge him that at all. You know, he tells the story of Christopher Hitchens, who noted atheist and also very much a drinker throughout his life. Anyway, so yeah, he showed up to Penn Jillette's house once for a party, and he showed up with a large bottle of whiskey, and to which Penn said, "You can't come into my house with that because I, you know, have a moral opposition to that kind of stuff, and I don't want it in my house because not because you're gonna like disturb the spirit of my home, but because like then it makes it so much more likely that you will imbibe this spirit, and then its effects will take hold, and we will lose the purity of our experiencing things without alcohol, you know." And that's Penn Jillette's reason for doing what he does, and he is welcome to it. He is absolutely 100% welcome to it. But I doubt very much, given the fact that Penn Jillette is kind of a cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs in the land of libertarianism, that I doubt very much that you would get him saying, like, well, because I believe this morally, then everyone should believe it morally, and we should ban alcohol. Like, no, I don't think you find him limiting the rights of others based on his own peculiar set of beliefs. And that is what we find ourselves dealing with Roe. Because here's the fun fact. You know, Republicans are not celebrating this victory that has taken them 49 years to achieve. They're not celebrating it. Oh, why? Why not, Republicans? Why are you not celebrating the greatest thing that you've ever done? Why don't you think that that's worthy of celebration? Why don't you enjoy this? Take this moment. Have it. Why are you not doing that? The answer is they know that it's deeply unpopular. Do you know that? You know, somewhere in the neighborhood of, 70 to 80%, somewhere between 70 and 80% of Americans do not support the overturn of Roe v. Wade. The majority, the overwhelming majority of Americans do not support the overturn of Roe v. Wade. And that's fascinating. I wonder why that's a thing that happens in a world. Wait, what? I heard a clunky McClunkerson sound. Anyway, but, oh, what? Why is there... stupid rain. Anyway. But yeah, why do we put up with, for any reason and for any length of time, the moralizing of people who do not want us to have the ability to choose for ourselves? You know, because they believe a thing they believe that we must be forced to act in accordance, as if we believe the same thing. And I find that to be absolutely morally repugnant, for the same reason that they are terrified, unjustly, by the way, of Sharia law coming from Muslims, for exactly the same reason that they are terrified of that. I am terrified of them wielding this kind of social and moral power, because I do not agree with them socially and morally in a number of ways. And that's the long and the short of it. And so I can't really justify, even though I was not kidding what I said before when I said that I do indeed find abortion itself, the actual getting of an abortion, the vacuuming out of a set of viable human cells, I do find that abhorrent. I do. I wasn't joking. That is factually accurate. I am not in support of widespread hooray, everyone go get an abortion. That's and by the way, that is the stance of most pro-choice people. It is not like, I believe you should be forced to have an abortion. I believe you should be forced to have 3 abortions before you can have 1 kid. Actually, there are places where people be having too many kids where that might not be a bad idea. I mean, I'm not saying abortion, but maybe plan B. Maybe birth control beforehand so that it's not as much of a problem. Anyway, but yeah, taking something which might possibly eventually turn into human is morally repugnant, and it's hard to get around that fact. But Roe v. Wade was not won on the basis of moral repugnance. It wasn't. It never was. It was won on the basis of our freedom of privacy. That's where Roe v. Wade was won. And so what has become the battleground for this thing is all right, you say it's a privacy issue. All right, well, we're going to test that. We're going to push against that. We're going to test the limits of what you're telling us. And indeed they have, ever since the beginning, these states, because don't you think for a single moment that there is any one of these southern states with a predominantly evangelical population who would not love to be the one with their name on the to have it forever on the decision, that overturned Roe, because when you get your name on a Supreme Court case, geez, wow, that went down way too fast. I guess they didn't let it recharge all the way. Or something. Anyway. I better eat some food, which means I better come over here. Anyway, it's, yeah, abortion itself is morally repugnant. When you think about what's happening, it's not you support it on the stands that, abortion itself is great. But there are a number of things that we support, capital punishment. All right, let's go right to it. We authorize our government to murder people on our behalf, but only the people that they go through this whole process to designate whether or not they are truly truly the worst of the worst. And, I guess I can eat while swimming. I'll bear that in mind. But truly the most murderable of the murderables. And ironically enough, they turn out to be murderers themselves. But yeah, we let the state decide who lives and who dies in murder cases, and we allow that to happen. That is, part of our moral code. It's part of our legal code, and we get to be a part of that being a thing that we let happen in the world. Well, I myself and a lot of other people are not entirely comfortable. What is happening, and why am I hearing such ominous? Anyway. So, the thing about Roe v. Wade is that, women won the right to have abortions on the basis of their right to privacy as guaranteed in the 14th Amendment. A right, by the way, which Justice Alito, who wrote the leaked majority opinion that came out and caused this whole fiasco, he basically said that, like, oh yeah, there's no guarantee to privacy in this country. What are you talking about? Like, well, I don't know. I seem to think I remember a 14th Amendment. Do you not have that one in your copy of the Constitution? Because, like, it is in there. It's been in there for a while. Anyway. But yeah, it's upsetting because, Roe was won in a weird way to begin with. But, one of the things that makes me support Roe, even though I don't like the idea of babies or baby-shaped things. Well, depending on when you get the abortion, they're not really that baby-shaped. They're more lima bean-shaped or even prawn-shaped, Like, if you've ever had a baby and you've had a wife who read the whole, like, what to expect when you're expecting, and every day they give you, like, oh, today, by this point in your pregnancy, the baby is developing this, that, or the other, and, is the size and shape of a lima bean, and, like, we wouldn't be sad if lima beans chose not, if one lima bean chose not to have any baby lima beans. We wouldn't be like, oh, what are we going to do? There's not going to be any more lima beans in the world. Every lima bean is precious and sacred. Anyway. But yeah, we wouldn't feel that way about a lima bean. Anyway, so let me throw some sand in the gears of some pro-life arguments. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because I love doing this. And here's the greatest piece of sand that you throw in the gears of the pro-life argument, and that is this. Why the crap are you not absolutely destroying fertility clinics? Like, there have been a lot of pro-lifers, well, not a lot of pro-lifers, but there have been pro-lifers who, try to destroy the offices of doctors who provide abortion as part of their care. Or they try to, like, firebomb a Planned Parenthood or whatever. And they're like, no, it's justified. We do this because it's, first of all, what God would have wanted. And second of all, like, we know for sure that what goes on here is baby murder. Life begins at conception, and once life has been conceived, you have to let it continue because life is sacred, and my imaginary friend said so, and so did a lot of people's imaginary friends, and so we have a consensus of imaginary friends, and they've all come together and said no on abortion. Anyway, wait, where's that drowned? Where's that drowned coming from? Oh, you know what? I don't care because I am running away from him. So I need to go to bed. Not actual bed, just bed in the game. So, number one thing that bothers... Okay, I'll kill him. Because I hate their gurgly gurgles. Number one thing, this guy coming right up to the surface. His brethren would not. Anyway, one of the things that bothers me about this whole Roe v. Wade thing is that all 5 of the 5 justices who are set to overturn it said that they wouldn't in their confirmation hearings. And then idiots like Susan Collins, Senator Collins, she's like, or wait, is she a senator? I think she's a congresswoman. Anyway, regardless, come on, brain. But she's, no, because they have to confirm him in the Senate. I think she's a senator. Anyway, come on, brain. Regardless, she's like, oh my God, they promised, Justice Boof Douche and Justice should have been Garland. Both of them said it's settled law, in their confirmation hearings, which to her meant that like, oh, well then they're not going to overturn Roe v. Wade. But then they did and are currently. And then her thing to the press is like, well, this just flies in the face of everything that they said to me. And that's how she talks too. I'm Susan Collins, a senator from Maine. And I have been so let down by the fact that these 2 gentlemen told me that they would not overturn Roe v. Wade. And yet, that is what they are doing. I am so mad at them. I am thinking of not sending them a Christmas card. Anyway, the worst thing she can think of. Regardless, like, she gets to act as if she's completely surprised. Like, what? They're overturning Roe v. Wade? Well, who would have... I would have thought never in a million years would we do what we've been promising to do for 50 friggin' years as a party, And, like, they stole a Supreme Court nomination from the first biracial president. So that's a good look. That's a good look. That's how much it mattered to them. And, the funny thing is that it is not the belief of the majority of the country that Roe should be overturned. Most Americans, like a majority that you normally don't see, like 70 to 80% of Americans agreeing on anything, other than that, pineapple on pizza is nasty, things like that are really important. That we like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson for some reason, like there are not that many things and they are like widespread, and like some of them are like, really, we all agree on this, you know. Like there just are certain things that we all agree on. And oh, oh shoot. So I needed to not take damage more than I needed to break that block. Anyway. So, yeah, here we are staring down the barrel of overturning Roe v. Wade. Well, let me tell you some things that like these are reasons why I support Roe v. Wade. Like things that get me. Okay? Is that do you want to make it an economic issue? Because it can be. Because guess what? When we first started giving women their own freedom over their reproductive rights, which the first steps of that were with birth control, the advent of Planned Parenthood, the invention of birth control, these things which were done because a nurse saw her friends dying, like absolutely dying of just childbirth, and sort of being forced to have these children that she knew they didn't want, because they're already overburdened with all their other children. And so she's like, man, if only women could, as she worked with some chemists and they came up with a plan, they came up with an idea on how to create birth control, which is a freaking marvel of medicine. And it's a boon to mankind for so many reasons. Do you want some? Okay, I thought you'd never ask. All right, economically, when all of a sudden women become able to work in the workplace and take on positions that they've never been able to take on before, all of a sudden you've just doubled your economy. Like you have. You've doubled the workforce. You've doubled the number of corporations that are around that you can give big fat tax breaks to or whatever. But you've doubled the economy because you have brought in women who otherwise would be saddled with children that they, let's be honest, did not really want in the first place. And I thought I was going to make that one. Anyway, and so, when you give women a little bit of reproductive freedom, what do they do with it? Well, they live their lives, like they live their freaking lives in a way that is in accordance with their desires and their ambitions. And that's a thing that men do anyway, and that men are taught, like, well, you're not a real man unless you do that. And so for women, to all of a sudden be granted in, the last half of the last century, the ability to, like, have freedom of choice for your own life. Because, and I tell my kids this all the time because I teach in a poor rural area where girls be getting pregnant all the time. And I tell them, some of the, like I was telling some girls today, I was like, yeah, you think, because I was telling a story about how a student had puked in my trash can the previous day and how, like, I wasn't fazed by it because I am a father and I was a stay-at-home father. I was the primary caregiver when our children were very young, and so I have handled a lot of bodily fluids, and so at a certain point, like, and my wife threw up so much when she was pregnant with our first child, and so, like, I'm completely desensitized to vomit, like both as a substance which needs to be handled and as an act which sometimes occurs. And, but these girls in my class are like getting oozy or like oogie and like feeling like, oh, am I going to be okay with just us talking about it? And I'm like, oh, if us talking about it is making you at all uncomfortable, then like, please, for the love of all things holy, do not have children, because if you're gonna have children, then you're gonna and by the way, for the legal ramifications of the state of Arizona, at no point and in no way did I instruct these students in how to prevent or avoid pregnancy. There was no discussion of such things because it's illegal for me to do that. And so I didn't. And you're welcome, you dinguses with your crap education law. Like, why are you happy with our students being, so near the bottom in terms of achievement? Like, why do you think you're doing a great job giving us the friggin' resources we need when you're like doing our students a great disservice with all your backdoored, stupid, like ridiculous, nonsensical laws that you're passing, where it's not addressing the problems in education. The problem it's addressing is that we're not churning out enough conservatives in the rising generation, because like the rising generation is senior conservative bullcrap and said no thank you. And that's not our fault as teachers. That's your fault as terrible politicians who do a crap job at giving the people what they want in any way, shape, or form. That's on you. Like, maybe you should, I don't know, develop a platform as a party. Like, do you think you need one of those? Because typically a party will have, like, things that it stands for. Like, why don't you, as a party, have things that you stand for? I'm just asking the question. Because you don't have that, and that's suspicious. You're out there overturning long-standing, like, you're over there stealing judicial nominations and overturning long-standing legal precedents based on the Constitution, based on decisions of previous. Oh, thank God it's a squid and not something else. Anyway, but like, you are overturning something that is so well established and affirmed, because it's been affirmed multiple times, because there have been numerous cases that have come out in attack of Roe, and Roe versus Wade, Roe v. Wade, has been upheld every freaking time as a right, because it is so well established. And so, like, it is known, Khaleesi, like, this is how it is. So these Republicans with their bullcrap, where like they refuse to be proud of their accomplishment in public, even though it has to be killing them inside. But the reason they're not is because they know that it's unpopular with the vast majority of Americans. And that's freaking stupid. Like, why are you going to push so hard to do something that your constituents don't want? Like, when did it become this thing where we don't even like listen to the desires of our constituency? Like, since when has this been the norm in governance, and why have we let it get this way? Because that is not what it should be. Like, it should not be okay for elected officials in government to not represent, at least on a basic level, or at least a majority of the time, the needs and desires of their constituency. Like, it's such a breakdown in the way in which the founding fathers, they're so willing to cry over, like, oh, they're founding fathers, they would be shooting by now. Boo. So willing to cry about that, and yet are doing things that our founding fathers would have found abhorrent. And we know that they would have found them abhorrent because they said so at the time. Like, at the time that they were doing the thing that, Republicans say is, like, so important for them to have done. They commented on the things Republicans are now doing and said, please, for the love of God, don't do this because it's terrible. So I just, we're getting like a tyranny of the crafty minority. Like, I will give them full points for having the foresight to win down ballot races and stuff. It's how they almost destroyed our democracy. And I give them full credit for seeing the power in local government as well as federal. That shows a belief in the power of government that, like, not even your most, left-leaning liberal is even able to show, because, like, they do not have that same level of, like, don't worry, government has this, It's that thing that Republicans claim to hate, the whole, like, the most terrifying words in the English language are these, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Oh, if the government helps you, well then God help you. Like, that's the attitude, and yet they're the ones who are like, we are going to rely on government because we are going to become government, and then we are going to push our way even though nobody wants us to. It's so ridiculous. And, like, for women, it really is true that they cannot be free. We cannot consider them to be free and equal citizens of this nation, which, by the way, their status as free and equal citizens of this nation, first of all, has never been established. That's what the ERA was supposed to do, and that was voted down by last two states to vote it down, Arizona and Utah, my own state, and the other state is the only freaking what's it called, theocracy in America, in the world. Well, no, not in the world. They're, Muslim nations with working theocracies. But, like, the only state in the United States, an allegedly free country, that has a working theocracy where, are you not a Mormon? Well, screw you. The Mormons get to tell you how to live. And that's just the way it is. And if you don't like that, then don't live in Utah, is the attitude. And, so those are the last two states to not vote for the ERA, to vote against ratification. And so women in our Constitution technically do not have they technically do not have rights guaranteed to them by the Constitution. what they have is the operational understanding that they probably should have rights. That's what they have. They have an unspoken agreement that we all kind of just assume that it's probably a good idea for them to have rights. That's what they have. But like, that is as tentative as a light breeze, and could go away just as quickly. It's nothing. It's nothing in terms of, legal standing. So, hooray. We're doing great. Anyway, so yeah, women with their rights that are not very much, not as much as men. And there's this stupid meme that I keep seeing where it's the one where the people are dividing up chips or dividing up Cheetos, and one person takes way less, and then the person who gets way more is like, "Hey, bro, I think you took more than me." Um, and they label the woman in the meme as the one, or they put the woman label on the one who takes more chips, and in this case it's rights. And it's like, in what freaking universe do women in America have more rights than men in America? In what freaking dented in brain pan do you have that as the reality? Like, that doesn't reflect reality at all. You got to not understand the concept of rights if you think that that's the way it is right now. Like, you got to be pretty freaking stupid. And so, yeah. Oh, I hear the sound of doors being locked. And, a lovely wife who is preparing to go to bed. Makes sense. I just looked at the clock and I understand what time it is. Also, I just realized how long I've been talking. Holy smokes, I only meant to do like a tight 45 on this one. Oh, well. Anyway, so, yeah, women with not the many rights to begin with. And then we take the one that was giving them the freedom to, like, get an education, for instance, just like more women, like right now, more women go to college than men. That's the state of affairs right now as I am saying this. And that could change. It could change drastically, and it could change quickly if women are not able to control their own reproductive future. Because once you have a baby, the part of your life that you live for yourself is done. And once you have a baby, you don't get to unhave a baby. Like, that's why the control is on the, before conception end. That's why, like, the restrictions that they're trying to put are on, terminating the pregnancy before it is born. Because once that baby takes its first breaths, then no one can say that it is not a member of our species, with all the inalienable rights granted it in its, country of origin or whatever. But yeah, the moment that baby takes its first breath, it is one of us. But prior to that, I think there was one more, wasn't there? There's a lot more. I don't want to go through that right now. I don't want to go spelunking. Anyway. Yeah. But yeah, women do not have as many rights. They just don't. Like, if you get a woman pregnant and she doesn't have an abortion for whatever reason, then she is sidled with the child and she has to make a decision. And when you are holding your own flesh and blood in your arms after having made the decision to give birth, it is a life-altering experience. And, people always say, like, oh, just give it up for adoption. Easy for you to say, first of all. Easy for you to freaking say. And, like, this is someone else's life, there are, like, a child given up for adoption very often does not have a good life. And I'm sorry to say that, but I have seen it. I've seen it firsthand. I see it firsthand every day. And so, yeah, a child given up for adoption does not necessarily have a great life ahead of them. And I'm sorry that it's so, but it is so. And we can't pretend that that's not a part of the equation, number one. Okay? So, yeah, when you want to tell a woman, like, oh, just give it up for adoption, ha ha ha. Secondly, like, when you are telling a woman to go through childbirth, that is a very painful and a very harsh thing to do. Hey, here's a fun fact. 80% of women giving birth, if left to without doctors doing what doctors very often do, would tear their genitals, and not just tear their genitals, but like rip it straight up the taint. Yeah, that's right. The perineum, just, literally tearing your flesh, at the vagina toward your ass. Like, that's what we're talking about. Okay? That happens so often that there's a procedure that a lot of doctors will do just as a precaution, that they'll do it automatically. And it's called an episiotomy. And what they do is they cut it before it can tear, so that at least it's easy to sew back together. Okay? So, that's what you're asking a woman to go through when you're telling her that she has to give birth. Which, that's a weird thing to say to someone. You have to give birth. Oh, I don't wanna. And like, some of these abortion laws would take away rights, because a lot of people say, like, oh, well, if a woman, if her life is in danger, then I understand. Like, a lot of these laws would take away that right. It would say, no, it's perfectly fine in this state, where they have passed the decisions that this state has passed. They've made the laws that they have made. And so as a result, you, dear woman, 1, 2, 3, have to literally put your life in danger because you got pregnant. And there are a number of ways that a woman can get pregnant. And I have heard people make the argument, like, oh, well, if you don't want to accept a baby as a possible outcome of your actions, then don't have sex. And it's like, oh, well, that sounds like a completely awful thing to say to another human being. It'd be like saying to another human being, like, hey, if you're poor, then I don't think you should be allowed to enjoy sunsets. Or, if you're poor, I don't think you should be allowed to buy really good cheese, and enjoy a quality cheddar. Like it's such a dumb thing to say, like, because sex is a pleasure to have, and it is a pleasure. The Italians call it the poor man's opera. That's one of the euphemistic ways to refer to sex in Italian, is the poor man's opera. And it is the poor man's opera because the opera is a way to pass the time, and to, like, give yourself some excitement that you might not otherwise have in your life. Going and seeing a movie, going and seeing a play, going and, entertainment. It's entertainment. And it is. I don't care who you are. I don't care how wealthy you are. Sexual intercourse between humans is wildly entertaining. So much so that just the business of recording it for people to watch later is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So, as it turns out, yeah, this whole sexual intercourse thing is certainly of interest, to put it mildly. Oh, yeah, that's me. Hello. Anyway, still rocking the Hatsune Miku skin. Because why? Because I don't know. I don't know anymore. Asking me like I know, I don't. But yeah, so here's what I do know. Telling someone that they have to give birth is, that's weird, and it's mean. And telling someone that they don't get to enjoy sex, one of the, I give this as a journal prompt to my juniors and seniors. Every year I give this as a journal prompt. What are the fundamental human experiences? That's what I ask them. Like, what are those things that you believe every human should experience as part of a life well lived? What are the fundamental human experiences? And it's funny because, like, you'll get students who will very clearly steer clear of sex, like they don't want to bring up the fact that they do it, or that they think about it, or that they're looking forward to it, or they have enjoyed it in the past, or whatever. They do not want to acknowledge it. They're like, you are my teacher, and it would be weird. And you know what? That's perfectly acceptable. I am not looking, like, when I give that assignment, I'm not, thinking to myself, and I am not certainly not saying out loud, well, I hope they put sex on the list, That is never a part of it. Once again, for legal reasons, and in case my employer ever hears this. But yeah, that is very much the way it is. Sex is a delight. And it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful expression. And, people should be allowed, no matter how rich or poor they are. They should be allowed to have what the more honest and forthright of my students refer to as a fundamental human experience. Something that ought to be experienced by all humans. At some point in their life, obviously, at an appropriate point in your life, with consent, with what I hope for your sakes is a very lovely person who treats you well. Anyway, but yeah, you want to deny that to people. that's cruel and that's barbaric. It's cruel and unusual is what it is. And so I think that it should not be the sort of thing which could be legislated, attempting to tell people they can't have sex. You know, I guarantee we go far enough back into your family history. Not only would we potentially find abortion of the 19th century variety where women would throw themselves down a flight of stairs or, kick each other right in the business. Yeah, that was very much a thing. Absolutely a thing. You wouldn't tell me that's not a thing. It is documented historically in the first-hand accounts of these women. In their journals, we have accounts of them throwing themselves downstairs, punching each other in the stomach, kicking each other in the stomach, taking falls, and in cases going to, unlicensed vets and stuff and having them perform a procedure, which if you have it done that way, or if you have it done any of the above, it's very dangerous and terrible. And yet women were still willing to undergo this. Why? Because that's how important it is that women be allowed to live their lives and to have freedom of choice. Look, I think abortion is gross. I absolutely do. I think it's gross. Oh, that's right. Duh, stupid. Do the thing first. I do. And I will absolutely say that that is true. But I think it is more gross to deny a fully grown woman the right to autonomy. Like, I think that's pretty gross. Because I think that just like anyone, she ought to have the right to say a thing or two about her life and how it goes. I just, that is something that I believe. That women who have had it so bad for so freaking long in this country, that they deserve to have the right to say how their life is going to go. And so unplanned pregnancy, yeah, they should have a say in what happens with an unplanned pregnancy. Actually have a say. They should have the only say in what happens with an unplanned pregnancy inside their body that took two people to get it there, and yet the responsibility, the life-altering responsibility, falls primarily upon the woman. It seems a no-brainer to me that when you look at, like, who does this impact the most? Okay, people in Congress, obviously, that's who it impacts. No, because they get to confirm these Supreme Court justices. Yeah, the sitting president, so long as he's a Republican, that's who it affects the most, right? Supreme Court justices who may very well have sexually harassed women. If we're going to believe women, then it would be super easy to believe this woman who said that she was sexually harassed by a man who then became a Supreme Court justice. Be really easy to support her because she's professional, she's competent, she's intelligent, she is not the sort of person that you would expect to be a grandstanding liar. And people who looked at the case, even our own fun Susan Collins, I think it was Susan McCollins, may have been Murkowski. Anyway, who said, like, well, I believe both of them. You know, where they concocted this crazy third way of like, I believe that, you know, that they both believe that something happened or didn't happen, and that they are both correct in believing it. It's like, wait, you believe two conflicting things at the same time? And they're like, yes, that's what I believe. And so I'm going to vote to confirm this guy because I'll be kicked out of my own party if I don't. Anyway, God, what a ridiculous set of affairs. Anyway, so, yeah. A woman gets pregnant, it disproportionately affects her the most, especially if she is the woman that I was picturing in my mind when I said that. The woman I was picturing in my mind, not anyone specific, but just basically a picture of my students in the plural, not any specific one of them, but potentially any one of them, because it happens so very often in this poor rural area where women are less likely to have even decent health access, let alone reproductive health access. And yeah, I think of them, because like, I'm gonna be honest with you, I teach a number of kids every year who were clearly children had by children who didn't want to have children. I mean, by the time I get them, the children themselves are like 17, so their parents are like 24. I'm kidding. That would be ridiculous if their parents were 24. Anyway, yeah, their parents are in their mid to late 30s, depending on how old they were in high school when they had their kid. Anyway, and these parents, they didn't want to become parents in the first place. Then they had their kid, and then they took care of the kid like a person who didn't want to have kids in the first place. And guess how it is to teach their kid? Freaking terrible, because nobody ever raised this freaking kid, and now I have to sit him in a classroom of people, many of whom were raised by people who know how to raise a freaking kid, and they have to have their educational processes gummed up by someone who is the product of two people who didn't even want to do this. Come on. What are we doing at this point? And I will tell you this is the same thing with my sister, okay? My sister, after her first couple of pregnancies where she almost died every time, her doctor was like, you need to stop having babies. And she's a very, very believing, religious type person of a full quiver variety. And so for her, for all of her last 4 or 5 kids, I think it's 5 kids, like her last 5, she has 8. She is 1 year older than me. I have 2. Like, my wife and I, we replicated ourselves on this planet, and even then we think that was a bit selfish. And so, like, we're done. And my older sister has 8. And for the last 5, the doctor was like, please stop. You keep almost dying. And you could die so easily with any one of these. And she was like, no, God's going to take care of it. And I guess in her mind he did, because she rolled those dice 5 more times and, they came up good. And she collected her winnings and was like, let's roll it again. Push it all back into the center of the table. Did that 5 times over with her own life. Because she firmly believed that that's what she was supposed to do. And the fun thing is, we're going to tell her, like, oh, you're very religious, but obviously you should stop having sex. Okay, that's definitely what Republicans are known for, is telling very religious people to, like, not keep making babies and, raising up children unto the Lord and the Republican Party. And so, I'm just wandering around. I'm not really doing anything right now. I'm just trying to wrap this up, but I keep saying things. I'm very talkative, and I'm sorry. So, yeah. This whole thing where my sister kept having kids, even though the doctor was like, please don't. Like, for your health, for what's good for you and what's good for the kid, please don't. And she's like, no, we're rolling them bones. Like, this is what's happening. And she rolled them bones, and it came up good. And I don't know what the odds were every time, but they were enough that the doctor was like, maybe don't. And not just maybe don't, but like, I would strongly advise that you not. Doctors speak for, I'll be so pissed if you do. And then she did multiple times. And I met her in the hospital after one of these births where, like, she had to have almost all of her body's blood replaced via transfusion because she lost almost all of her body's blood and nearly freaking died. And then she had like 2 or 3 more kids after that one. Oh my God. And she just believes that God's going to take care of her. And, if you're a believer, you're like, well, he did. It's like, no, he didn't, because he very conspicuously does not show his face ever or make his name known. And it's like, well, he works in mysterious ways and you just have to believe. No, I do not have to believe. I don't. You've presented me with no convincing evidence whatsoever, and I don't think that I should be beholden to you on this. Just because you have developed the ability to believe things for which there is no evidence does not mean that I have to respect it. Like, what are we even doing anymore? Like, would you have to respect me if I were able to convince myself that Spider-Man was real? Would it make sense for you to have to respect me for believing that and just, like, firmly believing it? I can't prove it's real. I literally have no more proof that it's real than you do. By the way, Spider-Man, way more sacred texts, more thrilling to read, quite frankly. But, like, I don't get to base your life choices off of my belief in Spider-Man, because that would be absurd. You agree, right? It would be absurd. That's what you sound like with your religious bullcrap. Like, just because you have a belief does not make your belief valid, does not make your belief worthy of respect, does not make your belief, the basis for denying other people rights. You have a belief. My response is, so what? The ancient Greeks believed the gods sat atop Mount Olympus. Does that mean that's where they are? I mean, granted, I understand that the ancient Greeks had a very complicated view of heaven, which was largely co-opted by Christianity during the the Hellenization of Christianity itself after Paul brought it to the Greeks. Anyway, regardless, holy frick, what are we just giving facts out? Yes, we are giving facts out. It is stupid and ridiculous to legislate based solely upon beliefs which you cannot prove. They are to be taken on faith by your own freaking rules. They are to be taken on faith. And what is faith? The substance of things not seen, things which are hoped for. You hope that they are true. You have not seen that they are true. You hope for them. It is faith. That's what your beloved Paul, who injected all, well, he didn't inject it. It was pseudepigraphal. But regardless, all of this injected Hellenistic philosophy into the, well, not just philosophy, but religion, injected into Christianity in very large doses. As Christianity was Hellenized. Yeah, you don't get to tell me what to do on the basis of things which you hope are true. And I don't get to tell you what to do on the basis of things which I hope are true either. What we both have to do is act like adults and say, well, what do we know? And here's what we know. We know that it's better for women for their mental health and safety and well-being if they have control over their reproductive rights. And we also know that it's better for our country as a whole because the economy booms when women are able to choose education and work. That is a fact. And just how you can't whisk away the idea that abortion is ending a human life in potentia. We end human lives in potentia all the time. All the time. Look at a fertility clinic. That is what they do the most of. The vast majority of the embryos that they create are designated as either unnecessary because they only implant a certain number of them, or non-viable, which they just chuck them. They put them in a bag and they chuck them. And they do that day after day, day in and day out, to a tune that would make an abortion clinic blush. And nobody firebombs their offices. And nobody threatens to murder the doctors. And they do it every day. So I'm not suggesting that we ought to firebomb them. I'm just saying that you already have a double standard, and you have to recognize that you aren't as sure as you thought you were. Life begins at conception. Well, what's conception? When sperm breaches egg. That's what conception is. Okay? So if life begins at conception, then sperm breaches egg, even if it's in a test tube. That is life according to you. And we put it in a bag and we chuck it every day. How you feel about that? You feeling certain that you ought to make strong statements legislating the right to privacy of other people? And especially when you know, and you have to know this, that people you know have not only had abortions, because it's not something that they'll talk about, but I guarantee you someone you know has had an abortion. And they don't want to talk about it, but it saved their life. I'm thinking of someone right now. Actually, now I'm thinking of a few people right now who had abortions and whose lives benefited from it. I'm not saying that abortion itself is not repugnant. Here's what I am saying, though. There are other ways. There are medications that'll do that in a much more humane and safe way. And the FDA just needs to approve them. They're just sitting there. And there are types of birth control which just need to be subsidized and made, some made free and some made available widely at low cost. You know what else we need? We need sex ed that tells people the truth. Teenagers will be attracted to each other and they will put their genitals together. I guarantee it. Because it's happened on campus before. Someone got impregnated on campus before. Her baby is like 4 years old now. Like, this is someone that I know and have seen within the last 6 months. So, yeah. She got pregnant on school grounds, right? So her life is never the same. She chose to have the kid and she chose to keep the kid. And her life is never the same. You know? And if that's her choice, then that's her choice. But she ought to be allowed to have it. Because she's the one whose life will be changed or not changed based on her decision. And you know what? In a way, it's kind of changed no matter what she chooses. But if she chooses one way, she has a lot more choices coming up ahead. If she chooses the other way, her choices become very limited, very fast, which is why I don't support going around and just limiting people's choices. Because I tell you what, when it comes to the things that they really believe in, nobody is more pro-big government than Republicans. They want a government that can dip into your pants and tell you what you can and can't do with your most private bits. That's what they want to do. And there is no more government overreach than that. And they're the ones who are supposedly the most concerned about it. Well, yeah, I guess. Anyway, very upsetting. Very upsetting. Anyway, because I'm sorry, I care about women. I have 5 sisters. I have a mother. I have a wife. I have a daughter. I care about women. I have a lot of them in my life. So, yeah. They are the people I care about the most. I mean, not that I care about my daughter more than my son, but like, yeah. In a lot of ways, the women in my life are the people I care about the most. I mean, my wife, certainly. More than anyone. But, yeah. Talking in circles. All right, people. Well, I think that in so many ways, I've said a lot of things about a lot of things on this, not just this episode. I mean, we're practically 3 hours in on this episode. But, like, I think I've said a lot of things about a lot of things, taken a lot of stands on a lot of issues, as I have done my Minecraft stuff. And do you know what? I am dead certain that I will end up on the right side of history on all of these things. Dead certain. And it's not because I'm special and not because I'm super smart, but because I'm willing to think critically about it. Anyway, because that's what it is, and that's what it has to be. All right, I'm gonna save and quit because like how much more am I just gonna wander around and talk myself in circles? Anyway, exploding creepers. What? I didn't know they did that now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for this one. I will see you in the next one. Okay, bye.